Welcome to this introductory lecture on project management software. I will first briefly discuss some popular project management software, their use and limitations, and then show you how the ubiquitous MSProject relates to what we teach on project scheduling. MSProject is the most popular system, and I'll say something more about that later on. Planners on major projects often use the upmarket Primavera system. Candy is a South African developed system aimed at the construction industry. It's very useful for repetitive projects such as building of multiple stories of a high-rise building. Also very useful for linear projects such as roads, railway lines and pipelines. Then there is Project Scheduler, and finally Concerto. Concerto is very useful for the allocation of resources to multiple projects, and it uses an algorithm that I really believe in. How useful is a computer to help you identify the stakeholders of a project? How useful is it to help you analyze the stakeholders, their influence, their interest? How valuable or how useful is it to help you make decisions on the scope of the project, on deciding what work should be delegated? Obviously, a computer cannot do these things. A computer cannot think. A computer cannot make decisions. A computer cannot accept accountability. Yet, computers are indispensable, and computer management software is indispensable on all larger projects. And it's important that you understand what the computer does and how it does it. So let's have a look at the basics of a system such as MSProject. In the courses that we teach, we discuss three tools of project scheduling. The one is the table of predecessors, that's on page 117 of the textbook, the network diagram, and the Gantt chart. I'm going to demonstrate to you how MSProject uses these three tools. This is the most common view of MSProject. On the left-hand side, it's got the table of predecessors, and on the right-hand side, the Gantt chart. The table of predecessors has got the activities. This is a type of a work breakdown structure where it shows the work packages and then the activities of each work package indented a bit to the right, the predecessors of each activity, and then the durations or the estimated durations. In the background, it also does the network diagram. Now, all you need to do is to develop the table of predecessors, and the computer will then automatically develop the Gantt chart and in the background the table, the network diagram. For example, if I add in another activity here, the computer inserts it at the beginning of the project and asks whether it should be 1 day. I can change it to, let's say, 6 days. It changes the Gantt chart because I've made a change on the table of predecessors. If I want this activity to come after activity 8, I just put in a predecessor 8, and there it's put in the dependency that this one follows after activity 8. So I can make changes on the table, which will then reflect on the Gantt chart and in the background also on the network diagram. Alternatively, I can develop the Gantt chart and the computer will update the network, the table and the network diagram. What I've done here is I stretched this activity on the Gantt chart longer. I can make it longer or shorter, and the computer changes that the duration then on the table as well as on the network diagram. I could also have made the changes on the network diagram, and then the computer would have updated the table and the Gantt chart. So the computer does these three things interactively. You need to develop only one of them. The most obvious one is develop the table of predecessors, and the computer will do the other two. But you can develop the Gantt chart, and the computer will then in real time develop the table of predecessors and the network diagram, or you can work on the network diagram. For the purposes of project control, there is a tracking Gantt view. On this view, I can update the actual progress. So if an activity has been done more or less halfway, 53% in this case, I can, by simply drawing on the Gantt chart, the percentage complete. For a critical activity, if a critical activity is complete, it obviously then becomes non-critical. And if I go back to the normal Gantt chart, the progress is also shown on my normal Gantt view. For people who refer calendars rather than Gantt charts, there's also a calendar view where the activities are basically shown as bars on the calendar. Although the computer can't think, it's good at computing. That's why we call it computer in the first place. In project management, it's good at computing start dates, finish dates, slack, free slack, all aspects like that. So over here, there are columns that indicated how the computer computed in real time the early start date and the early finish date of each activity. Because the computer cannot think, it cannot decide whether activity should be done as early as possible, as late as possible, or somewhere in between. Because of that, it starts in the normal settings. It starts all activities as early as possible, and you can then overrule that to make use of the available float. Yeah, this activity is scheduled to start at the 9th of August, and I can overrule it by making it a week later. So you can overrule the finish and start dates, and it calculates the free slack and the total slack of the computer. And you can insert here more columns. You can choose what other columns you want to insert, earn value, or whatever the case might be. MSProject can handle lag and lead. For example, here it indicates that activity 16 is dependent on activity 15. So the activity plumbing is dependent on building phase 1 activity. The SS means that it's a start-to-start relationship. The plumbing can only start after building phase 1 has started, and then there's a lag of 16 days. We can change this. For example, we can change the 16 days to here to let's just say 8 days, and it's made that change on the Gantt chart and in the background on the network diagram as well. Alternatively, I can work on the Gantt chart, and the changes will be made on the table and on the network diagram. If I double click on this link, it tells me that it's a start-to-start relationship with a lag of 8 days. I can change this to other types of dependencies. For example, from finish to start. In other words, activity 15 must finish before 16 can start. Let's say we want that, and we want it a 10-day lag. If I click on it, it's now the building phase 1 activity must finish before the plumbing can start, and there's a certain lag between the two. In the resource graph view, we can see the workload on a resource. For the builder, for these specific days, for most of the days, he has got 100% workload. But for these 5 days, he's got a 200% workload, implying probably that he'll have to work 16 hours per day for each of those days for that week. We can scroll between resources to see the workload of other resources, the plumber, the electrician, etc. Now we can do resource leveling. It's not always all that easy on MSProject, but it can be done. We can level the resource. We can level for all resources. All I want to illustrate here is a couple of options. First of all, we've got the option for automatic leveling or manual leveling. I would strongly recommend manual leveling. You can clear leveling values before you level. You can level for the entire project, or only for a phase of the project, or for a specific period, maybe for a week or a month of the project. But you can choose leveling for the entire project or level for a part of the project. This is an important selection. Level only within available slack. If the click is on there, as in this case, it will mean that the project duration cannot be made longer. You can only use the slack that's available. If I switch it off, it can make the duration of the project longer. Another one I just want to point out without really motivating is that this one, leveling, can create splits in remaining work. I would strongly recommend that one be switched off. My intention here is obviously not to train you how to use MSProject, but merely to show you how the three tools that we use and that we teach in the course, the table of predecessors, the Gantt chart, and the network diagram, how they relate to MSProject. And once you've mastered these three tools, hopefully by doing a small project, scheduling a small project by using the table of predecessors, the network diagram, and the Gantt chart, once you've done that, it would be a good time to do a course on MSProject or on Primavera or any other software. Obviously, however, if you don't use a system like that, or if you are not going to use it on your projects, you will quickly lose the skill of using it. So this then was just a basic overview of a couple of commercial software systems that are popular, and more or less how it applies to what we teach you on the project management course.